Guys, a very good morning. Member of Parliament for the APNUAFC live page, bringing you this update from West Berbice, number 5 village, where residents are still protesting. This is the village that was still blocked from last evening, and the guys are going to maintain that this bridge should be impassable. Again, in protest of the residents killed, these two young men, Isiah and Joel Henry, and this is the number 5 bridge. This is day 2 of the protest action. As you may be aware by now, Isiah Henry, 17, and Joel Henry, 16, were brutally murdered in the Cotton Tree Bat Dam sometime over the weekend. And those investigations are ongoing, but the residents here are adamant that no justice, no peace. And we are still on the ground here in West Berbice. Spend the evening here, as a matter of fact, with residents, trying to get a sense of how things are going to move. And things move very quickly here. Things go from 0 to 60 very fast. This is the west coast of Berbice. We came up that way. That is from the east, and the roads were blocked from that section. And as we go further to the west, the roads are blocked there as well. As you can see, the residents here are very vigilant and militant, maintaining that justice must be done. And so there are a number of tires being rolled onto the roadways here to add to this barricade of fire and debris. Folks, I want to alert you as well. There is a page similar to the APNUAFC page. It is not under our control. It is posting some images and texts and messages that out of this main APNUAFC page and all the other pages that we are connected to. That page is APNUAFC in lower caps, and there's some space between the APNU and the AFC. It is not the official APNUAFC page that you're receiving this broadcast on. So we're just alerting you and disassociating ourselves and the APNUAFC coalition for that page in particular. A very, very militant, very militant residents are out this morning, again stating emphatically, no justice, no peace. We would have noted a post on Attorney at Law Nigel Youth's space, in which he is putting forward some recommendations, if one wants to call it that, of how this matter should be addressed. He says that there should be a forensic investigation on the brutal murder of these two young men. He says he doesn't think that we have the capacity locally, even though the police force has its own capabilities in many regards to do investigations. He do not believe that this particular skill set resides in the Ghana Police Force. He's saying that they are available on the international market and that they should be pursued. That kind of an assessment and investigation would tell us the kinds of weapons that were used to inflict the kind of injury on these two young men, and among other investigation that could be more telling and more detailed as to how these young men, teenagers, babies, met their gruesome demise in the Cotton Tree Bat Dam. Again, for those folks who are now joining us, we are in number 3 village, West Berbice, and we are still following the developments and the investigation concerning the brutal murder of Isiah Henry and Joel Henry, 17 and 16 respectively, who are residents of this otherwise peace-loving community. their bodies were found, or their remains were found in the Cotton Tree area yesterday. Cotton Tree Back Dam, to be precise. One resident saying here is a place called the Dark Hole Cotton Tree Back Dam.
When they outside say can't see underneath it, like dark hole. If people who work with this man have to find it. People who don't know where this place is have to find it. And if it wasn't them man, they may know what going on.
Know what this man does.
Look where they want to show them man. They know the background, you never find them. Them man come behind and plant trees and them man go my good body.
Nobody don't do them nothing.
Nobody don't do them nothing.
Nobody don't do them anything. Nobody don't do them nothing.
Yeah, buddy.
Every night. They're going down at the back. Fuck. Nobody don't trouble them. Look the other day, 2 little police girls with 2 police boys go down at the back and they might bring them to the truck, catch them. Bring police cars, we see the girls, them is underage. And we make police come and carry them away to the period. And then you do them struggling and stuff. I feel by it. Yeah, man.
And then take it to the more, we're going to put a
Folks, that is it. There's a minimal police presence here, and for those police ranks who are on the ground here, they're interacting with residents. One would assume they're trying to keep the peace here. Lots of residents coming out at this point. We're in the early hours of the day, and so we're going to keep you posted. We are going to... That direction is where? Good. So we are going to push a little bit in number 4 and 4 to see what's happening. So we're heading a little further down to get a sense.
Morning, Sarah.
Morning. So we're just going to take a walk now into number 4 because we get a sense that that direction there is blocked as well. And as you can see, people are out just kind of getting a sense, waking up this Monday morning, Monday the 7th day of September, trying to get a sense of what is happening here. And we're just kind of heading further into number 4 to give you guys a sense of what is transpiring on the ground here. Again, for those of you who are now joining us, we are following the developments of the gruesome murder of teenagers Isiah Henry and Joel Henry in the Cotton Tree Back Dams. One resident says a particular area called the Black Hole. And they hail from number 4, number 5, this general area. And this guy is going to add to the barricade. They're going to add to that barricade. And residents are just out very peacefully looking on. Otherwise, minimal police presence here, just checking out to see what is happening here. As we pass, we're getting lots of comments, right? These guys are saying Black Lives Matter. Again, residents letting their concerns be heard that Black Lives Matter and they cannot just murder these young men and get away with it. Again, for those of you who are now joining us, we are now pushing further into number 4 village. The tension here is palpable, folks. The residents are livid. The anger can be felt, and they are very, very adamant that this is not going to pass easily. Something's got to give. And for the most part, residents are out just kind of getting a sense. I guess some residents we pass are kind of trying to determine whether they're still heading to work or going to call it a day based on the fact that so many of the villages are blocked or they're preparing to block them. again in protest that these two young men met their end long before their prime. Cut down so brutally in the backlands of country, an area called the Black Hole. We saw some press statements coming out of the government, and we saw comments to those press statements on Facebook that they do not go far enough to condemn the real atrocity that has transpired here. And many of the comments we were monitoring on Facebook suggest that this is a hate crime. And these are hate crimes in which the young men, Mr. Isiah Henry and Joel Henry, met their untimely demise, Cotton Tree, Baghdad. And again, we're pushing further here into number 4 village, West Coast Berbice. And as you can see, that plume of black smoke there is where the road is blocked in this direction. We can see a police vehicle there with some ranks just behind that barricade. And we're going to get a little closer to get a sense of what is transpiring at this end. This is a village here, number 4, where it is a combination of mixed residents. You have both Afro-Guyanese and Indo-Guyanese who live here. And the people are now waking up to day 2 of the unrest here on the west coast of Berbice in protest with the gruesome death and murder of Isiah Henry, 17, Joel Henry, 16, who reside in these villages. Their classmates, their friends, their neighbors are in these villages. And we're going to just get a sense of what's happening here. If you can see that, there is a bus in the road, an old bus. Morning, guys, morning. Live. Some residents giving us a shout out as we walk through. Morning, fellas. This is the other barricade we're coming up on. And we see a police vehicle engaging residents, and we're going to get a sense a little closer what is happening from that angle. Folks, again, we want to alert you that there's an APNUAFC page that is not related to our main APNUAFC here, that is spewing a lot of nonsense on social media, quite frankly, and we want to disassociate ourselves from that. It does not reflect our views as a coalition. And if you notice, the page is a little different in the terms of the name of the page. It's APNU, I think, in lower caps with a space between the APNU and the AFC. Ours is different. It's all caps, and the APNU and AFC, for all intents and purposes, is one word making up the name on our page. And this is the barricade on this here. And an old derelict vehicle, and what used to be perhaps a stove, morning, and washing machine and other things burning on the road here. Last evening my phone was intelligent enough to tell me I was too close to the fire and it was overheating, so I'm going to just try to step back a bit. This is number 4 village we're in, and those are some tires alight there as residents continue to protest the gruesome murders of Isiah Henry and Joel Henry, who hail from these villages on the west coast of Berbice. And there is the police presence out this morning, keeping the peace. Morning, officers. Keeping the peace. And folks, I'm going to take a break from you here, and if we have anything more to report, we are going to be back on live with you. Thanks for joining. Sherry Duncan, Member of Parliament, here for APNUAFC Live. And we're on the ground monitoring the situation. Again, anything that comes on that we think you need to know about, we are going to be back on live. Just before I go, I want to remind persons who may have just joined us that we are covering the developments here on the West Coast. The gruesome murders of Isiah Henry and Joel Henry, 16 and 17 respectively, who met their gruesome end in the Cotton Tree Back Dam in a particular area, residence called the Black Hole. Folks, thanks for joining us. See you again in a few. Have a great morning.